Davey D hanging out with you this afternoon, and as we promised, since the devastating earthquake that ravaged Haiti, we wanted to keep abreast of the relief efforts, basically follow the money trail and the politics and all the other things that, would go unnoticed after the lights and cameras were turned off from the initial shock and, the immediate reaction to the tragedy. One of the people who's been doing a lot of work in Haiti before, during, and after the earthquake, civil rights attorney Walter Riley. How you doing, sir?
I'm good.
So you're just getting back. So we want to, do a little catch up and find out what's going on. And we want to start with the big question. Where's the money? Now, I just ran into an artist named Freedom the other day from Haiti. And he was telling me, he's like, man, he goes, there's no money. He goes, nothing's coming through. This is what he's saying, just getting off, getting back. Then we heard, news reports on mainstream media saying that the money hasn't come through. So if they're saying it on the mainstream media, there has to be a whole lot of other stuff going on. So let's start with that.
All right. Yes. Well, the money is being held up, being used for the benefit of the directors of organizations, directors of banks, and governmental entities. It's not getting to the ground. There is money. There is a lot of money that's been raised for Haiti, a lot of money promised, and there has been money spent. The problem is the money is not staying in Haiti. There are many NGOs that are doing some things. There is water in the camps right now. Not all the camps, not everybody has water, and not everybody has a tent. But there are some.
Right.
And some things are being done. And there is medical care. There is probably more medical care in Haiti right now than before the earthquake in many
ways. Is this
at
inflated prices, or is this at, are these supplies that money is being spent on? Is this at wholesale or inflated?
I have not spent my time trying to find out all the details about the money. I look at the gross approach. What I'm working on is the grassroots efforts, the popular movement, and trying to ensure that what we are able to raise, what resources we're able to put into Haiti gets to the ground, gets to the right people. But the major NGOs are raising a lot of money, and the money is not being distributed to the grassroots movements, to the popular movement, to the people in Haiti. Money is going to administrative costs. Money is being held up because some say that there is not a proper distribution network. There is not the resources for getting the money out. There is not a capacity for people to use it. Those are all arguments that keep the money in the coffers.
Right.
And that's the problem. The other problem is that the international community has not put the money on the ground that they promised. We don't see building going on. When I was just there 2 weeks ago, I didn't see any new construction. I didn't see the cleanup campaign that should have been going on. There are trucks that are hauling materials, but they're hauling it sort of back and forth in some places and dumping it on streets. There is not a proper cleanup plan. There is not rebuilding of the schools, rebuilding of the hospitals. There are not housing developments.
So where the blockades in the road that this doesn't happen? Let's talk about, say, the rebuilding. It's we're coming up to a year, in a few months, and one would think by now that would have already started. What happens that it doesn't take place? Is it a government thing? Is it the international folks not following through, as you said, or is it just on-the-ground politics?
It's politics. It's both on-the-ground politics and international politics. It's not an issue of people not following through, so things aren't getting done on that level. It's a case of will and intention. There is not a desire to ensure that there's housing for the masses of people in Haiti, because that could be done. Now, the needs are housing, medical care, schools. Just in terms of building structures. None of that is not being developed. There is not an infrastructure development around roads. There is development for getting in some more of the sweatshops, some more of the garment industries. And there's a need for jobs, but the problem is what kind of jobs they are and what they're paying and what the conditions are.
Well, who's directing that?
Well, that's Clinton.
That is Clinton.
That's Clinton and his committee. That includes some members of the elite Haitian government, if you will. And there is a plan for that. We see the signing with the Korean company for building a sweatshop. We've seen the sweatshop plan that Canada and Canadian corporations have developed with Secretary of State Clinton. But we have the two Clintons there, and they're carrying out the Clinton policies.
So we have civil rights attorney Walter Riley in the building with us this afternoon, giving us an update on what is going on in Haiti. He was just there 2 weeks ago. For many of us who just kind of follow it when we do these type of interviews, so we don't get the day by day.
Right.
Let me just make sure I kind of understand this. We have a former president who is now the ambassador for all intents and purposes, or the point person to Haiti right now, Bill Clinton, who has been celebrated in various communities that would be close to the Haitian community, black communities.
Yes.
At one point he was considered the first black president. He's come across, and has been celebrated as being this fair guy, the guy who's willing to go to Africa and all these places and bring attention and try to solve the problems. Why would he want to set up infrastructure for sweatshops, knowing how poor this country is, and not really give this population of people a really fair shot at being brought up to speed with the rest of the world?
Well, let's just talk about Clinton's history in Haiti. Clinton represents a international monetary approach that maybe is somewhat different than some of the folks that were part of the neocons that Bush talked about. But he has an approach and alliances with various folks, and that is international money that should control much of the industries, much of the structures, and much of the world. He can make these investments in the developing world, if we talk about Africa or the islands or Central and South America. In order to do that, he has to have a certain political structure in place. And what Clinton has done when he was president was to focus on suppressing a lot of the popular movements in many of these places. Now, not to spend a lot of time talking about the paramilitary forces that he funded in South America and Latin America that killed popular movements, that killed people on the ground in a very real way. In Haiti, Clinton has been celebrated by some people. President Aristide was elected, the first democratic election in 1990. That was during the Bush years. Within a few months, he was deposed by various forces.
Right.
Playing a major role were people like Jesse Helms, doing a lot of popular movement, and folks here in the United States. The International Republican Institute put a lot of money on the ground. But there were also many other people, including some black people that were trying to make profits in Haiti.
Right.
Ron Brown had interest in Haiti, for example. We know. So there were those forces here in the States that wanted to profit. Bush and his forces allowed and helped to depose President Aristide the first time. Aristide came back here. A popular movement was developed. The Bay Area was instrumental in helping to build this popular support for him. Clinton was elected in 92, and Clinton ushered President Aristide back to Haiti, but only because Haiti was ungovernable. And Haiti was made ungovernable by the masses of people in Haiti on the ground.
Right.
Clinton didn't do it because he thought that democracy was the most important thing to ensure in Haiti. He did it because he could not carry out any other policies in Haiti without Aristide being on the ground. When he went back, Clinton ensured that Aristide was not able to get the financial support that was necessary. He dumped rice in Haiti, which undermined and destroyed the agricultural rice growing in Haiti. He insisted that Aristide and Aristide's government sell off its national interest, to privatize national interest. That undercut the economic developments in Haiti. There's a whole history to what he was doing in Haiti that was not good for the Haitian people in terms of the economic approaches. Here and then after Clinton goes, Aristide's reelected again. This whole history of process when Aristide was no longer in the presidency from 1996 to 2000. But when Clinton went back to Haiti after the earthquake, Clinton went back with a similar policy that he had before, for developing support for his friends, and we can say certain political allies and economic interest in the world.
Right.
And that's what he's been doing in Haiti.
And he's doing this with the blessing of Barack Obama, who should know better.
He's doing it with the blessings of Barack Obama. One of the things that was true when Clinton was in power that he paid a lot of attention to the islands and to the Caribbean and to South America, the period of coups and support for right-wing militias. Bush came in, and he was so intent on dominating the Middle East that he didn't have time to spend and didn't have the interest. The U.S. didn't have its face turned to Latin America. And as a result, democracy flourished. Political movements flourished. We see the development of the strength of Venezuela, of Brazil, of Evo Morales, those forces developing.
Right, out of Bolivia.
Yeah, and now Barack Obama is in, Clinton Hillary Clinton is Secretary of State. The U.S. is turning its face back.
Right, and
towards Latin America and towards the Caribbean, and they are turning it back not for the benefit of the popular movement.
Right, we talked with Rod Stars, not too long ago from Rebel Diaz, and he was talking about, look at Barack Obama hugging our president in Chile,
Yes.
and understand what this is about, that, this is the highlighting of a right-wing force, making him be a hero like we did Rudolph Giuliani, putting a face to something that's going to be very sinister to the people that are fighting and trying to resurrect popular movements on the ground.